Making a video. I think for Vlogger-Dome, I think I will start a subject on the subject of value, its origins and roots. Something like that anyway. Some appropriate title. Because Anticontivadis keeps hinting around it. Well, he says directly in the comments section, so, there's no intrinsic value, that somehow value is all just a, something we project. And, it depends on how you qualify that statement. I would guess as to whether it's true or not. If you're going to say nothing has intrinsic value, if you're saying nothing including the welfare of sentient beings, well then I guess that might make some sense. But if we have to, I just think my obvious counter argument is that the welfare of a sentient being, something that can suffer or feel poorly, creates value. It generates it by existing. I've made these arguments, so I guess I'll make them explicitly. And there's the origin of value. It's in how does something in overall affect the welfare of sentient consciousness. And one would argue that the net effect, the total effect, is always the most meaningful effect. The only effect that really matters is as total effect as you can find. It's like the total effect of somebody getting run over on the street. There's the narrow effect of the individual dying. So if he dies very quickly and he has kind of a mediocre life, like nothing too outstanding, and then he was kind of doomed, like in 6 months he was going to get diagnosed with cancer, have horrible chemo and all that kind of crap, then one could argue from that narrow perspective, being run over wasn't such a bad thing. But then if you extend the perspective and say, well, how many kids did he have, and how much did his wife need him, and what is her destiny? She should become an alcoholic. Do the kids, go wrong and become criminals, and there could be repercussions, consequences that make the event much more significant. I mean, theoretically, simple events like that can lead to world wars and all kinds of implications. So it's just kind of depending on how broad a context you can bear to contemplate with your facts. I mean, how many facts you have that can make that possible. And sometimes the facts are just probability equations, where you just say it's probably or likely, by some statistical standard, that certain things will have certain effects over time. And so you can put in a category based on its probability. So value is kind of a complex question in terms of the absolute resolution of it. But I think its origin isn't complicated. The origin is the fact that we as individuals are generating a welfare state. We can either be in a good state or a bad state. And things that tends to put us in good states of being, comfortable states of being, are good. And things that tend to harm us or put us in a negative state are bad. Obviously, sometimes a bad thing can happen and it can turn out into be good in the long run, have long-term positive value, so a little pain now can provide great gain later. But in overall mass, we can say that the individual generates a state of being, and that overall it's just generally useful, positive, good, a positive value circumstance to elevate or transition the general welfare state of individuals to a positive condition where they don't have a misery, an encumbrance, a disabling condition. They're not enduring great frustration or physical repulsion and pain. Unpleasant sensation. That's pretty simple, right? Yeah. So anyway, so when these people argue that there is no intrinsic value, it kind of just depends. I mean, every millisecond of the universe's existence there may not be, but in how we progress through our experience, I think it's undeniable that our experience has intrinsic value. Experiencers create value. Simple analogy, metaphor. Me, if I was made out of plastic and just spoke these words without a sentient brain, if I was just a machine that functioned and did all of this scary stuff, that would be a very different thing than me. That would be functioning. Oh, this is not great. I don't really like ice on cement. Oh, now I have to jump. Oh, dear. Jumping's dicey for me. Yeek. I don't like leaping. Just do it, Gary. Well, I'm going to have to do it on the way back, so what the hell? Ooh, made it. Yeah, it's my old stroke leg. Always makes me a little worried. Look at that ice. When I come back, I'll have that extra step. Anyway, where was I? Sorry for the interruption and such. It's chilly still. So individuals generate value by being sentient, and we can tell the difference between inanimate objects, non-conscious entities, and conscious entities, and that difference is glaring, is hugely significant. Stuffed animal versus living cat. There can't be any dispute that there isn't a intrinsic, fundamental, functional, real difference between those two things. Even unconscious cat on, a vet's table for surgery or something. Huge difference between conscious cat and unconscious cat. We know one you can stick knives in and the other one you can't. It's intrinsic, fundamental. The very nature of the thing is substantially, hugely, gigantically different based on its conscious state. And that's where value originates. Anything that produces a conscious feeling state creates value, because the state it can be put in can be positively affected, elevated, made more comfortable, or made more discomfortable. Discomfortable? Well, whatever. More uncomfortable. And that fact creates value. And the rest is just the complex math of figuring out how much an elevation in state of being is worth versus how much a degrade in state of being is worth, and measuring how many of these things in pain is worth how many of those things in comfort. That's where value gets complex, but the absolute nature of it, the fundamental nature of it, the roots of it are solid, are substantial. They're, I think, beyond reasonable dispute. I don't think you can reasonably argue that the value state of a sentient, the conscious state, its welfare state, is profoundly valuable, and by just being, by just functioning, it generates value. Now, how else to put this in the context of the conversation? Is I'd argue that it's a non-starter almost for any conversation if we can't get this one right. This is fundamental to an understanding of fairness, justice, decency, good, right, wrong, productive, efficient. You can't deal with any question that has any importance or meaning or substance or significance if you can't get agreement on what the commodity is that's being exchanged in these different scenarios. It really is an impossible barrier to overcome for coherent conversation if you don't have an agreement on these terms. An agreement on, like I said, we have to have an exchange rate, or we can have no economy in the exchange of ideas, no function. So going back to the statement that these people keep making of the absence that somehow humans are subjects, are viewers, are observers, get to declare value rather than value being discovered or revealed or made visible because it already exists. This is basically the argument. I'd argue it's the same argument in a lot of other arguments. Those people will argue that humans made up math or they made up some other thing, and they don't make these things up. They discover the relationships that exist. And this relationship between consciousness, between a certain kind of brain function, and meaning and value, substance, is a discovered relationship. It's observed to be true, to be real, to be something we can state and define and describe in the world. And so it does have a absolute, universal nature. Now, there's certainly room for disagreement about the specifics of that nature, but the fact that that nature does exist as a substantive value producer really can't be an arguable point. It's got to be accepted from my perspective before there can be any rational conversation. I cannot, even bending my imagination as ludicrously as possible, find plausibility in the delusion that this dirt is just as meaningful as my sentient biology. That what happens to it, you could catch it on fire, it's no different than catching me on fire. That it just doesn't matter. I don't have any greater significance because I'm feeling and can experience horror and intense, unpleasant sensation. It's just a non-starter. I can't go there. It's not even acceptable as bizarre fantasy. It's too insane. There's no other word for it. It's too ludicrous a proposition. It can't survive any rational test. In every way, it's quite observable, the distinction that we are. The billions of cells, the personal experience I can testify to, there's just no possibility of denying the function I'm experiencing. It doesn't matter whether my brain cooks it up or not. It's cooked up something just beyond deniability, beyond refutability as a significant cooked up dish. It's made the matter of value. It's made the value of mattering. It's done all those things, and value now exists absolutely, intrinsically, fundamentally, and without rational or reasonable dispute. You just can't negate it without committing a preposterous crime against logic. Yeah, really. I am surprised that this is something that needs to be argued, that somehow we have to fight over this premise idea that the welfare of feeling things is the generator of value. I mean, it just wouldn't even have occurred to me that somebody could have missed this truth. It's one of the first things I realized as consciousness fell on me, is that these different states of conscious being are significantly different. So different that meaning is created. The distance between them breaks the barriers of permissible, and you now have some kind of new entity in the universe because the limits are broken. However the metaphor, choose your own. The point is, it's as intrinsic as the truth of it is the way it falls on you, the knowledge of it. Just you have no way to evade knowledge of it. It screams it in your ear with every passing moment and time where you transition through your states of well-being and experience these easily valued states of preferable and less than enjoyable, or something like that. Anyway, that's the video. I thought I'd switch to recording. So, Waganome video, some sort of rational counter argument would be appreciated. I don't think somebody could provide that.